And this hangout is live. Konnichiwa, bitches. Welcome to the 2017 Ultimate Man's League podcast playoff edition. That's right. This is the first week of the playoffs. I'm joined here by Connor Hemeon, as usual, and Kevin Hemeon for the first time. Connor, thanks for joining us as always. Kevin, welcome to your first ever edition of the UML Podcast. How you doing?
Thank you. Good. Good. Hopefully better if I win this year.
This is going to be a great podcast.
Yes.
We're off to a flying start here, guys. Connor, you getting ready for the holidays here? How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good, I'm going to be stuck with this guy at the end of the year, I'm sure, quite often.
All right. Sounds good.
Laugh at him as when he loses in the first round or the second round.
Yeah, second. I did get the bye. Got there by the back door, but I got it.
You'll be losing to me, I believe, too. For my prediction.
I don't know.
We'll save it for the podcast there, Connor. So we have a good show for you today. We're going to go ahead and talk about some of the Week 13 matchups, what people did or didn't do to get in or not get into the playoffs. We'll talk about some playoff matchups for round one and looking ahead. And then we'll talk about the seeding and the matchups for the first round of the 2017 First Choice Tournament. So I'll go ahead and turn on my screen share so you guys can look at some of the stats along with us as we go along. We'll do this guy. Guys, how's my screen looking?
Good.
All right, cool. All right, guys. So we'll go ahead and jump right into some of this Week 13 mumbo jumbo. And one of the most important games of the week was AJ versus Joe. All AJ had to do was win, and he got in. If he lost, he wasn't getting in. He couldn't get it done. Kevin, what do you think held AJ back from making the playoffs?
Like I was saying earlier, I think AJ's main problem all year is his consistency, really, because he gets those 120 some odd points. Well, if he's coming up against a team that's having an off week, great, he's got it. But Joe wasn't having an off week, and he beat him. So, I mean, all he had to do was score over 130, and you could beat him. So he's got some basics, but he needs a couple of real stars that can maybe pop him off 40 points or 30 points. So, and he doesn't apparently have any.
Great. Now, the beneficiaries of that game were always going to be the Cookie Snatchers versus Rampage. Ray picks up the win. Connor, what do you think was the case here? Did Ray go out and get this one, or did the Rampage just not show up?
Well, I think it was a little bit of a combination of both. You know, Ray definitely put up a solid week. 143 is not terrible, but I feel like I think that he deserved the win, but I think the Rampage could have been a little closer with it. I think it could have been a tighter race. I was expecting a tighter game, and I feel like his running backs really let him down this week. Rod Smith was, well, I guess DeMarco Murray was, but Rod Smith was one of his bright spots in his running backs. I mean, he only got 8. None of his guys double digits. And then his wide receivers, nobody had a 20-point game. It's just kind of everybody was not terrible, but they weren't really putting up the points that he usually gets.
Yeah, that Tyrod Taylor injury really held him back there. You could maybe make the argument that Tyrod could have put up a few more points, made this a little closer. But Ray wins and Ray gets in the playoffs. We'll talk about him a little bit more in just a minute. But why don't we shift gears and talk about the number one seed matchup? Basically, the winner got the number one seed. Pat beats Kevin 178-157. And honestly, Kevin, it looked like it was going to be a lot worse. Were you surprised that you made it as close as you did?
That I made it as close as I did?
Yeah, because you were getting stomped at one point.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I knew Bell and Brown had come through for me in the end, but I would have hoped to have been closer so they could have turned the tide for me. But it was pretty apparent that I had lost the game. The first round at 1:00 in the afternoon, I was being decimated. So, and yes, okay, Connor's pointing out that I made quite a few mistakes with my roster choices, but oh well. I mean, I really did have intentions of playing Goodwin. And I'll tell you, a huge disappointment the last couple of weeks has been Davis for me. I thought with the injury of Reed and him not being there, that he'd really benefit from not having to split those points. Well, he didn't split anything. He didn't get anything at all the past couple of weeks. So that sort of killed me.
Cool.
So
now,
yes, and my running backs too. Woodhead has been a disappointment so far for what I thought his potential would be.
Well, at least you gave us the update when he got cleared to practice. We were all waiting with bated breath.
Hey, I've been waiting for that all season, tell you the truth. But
okay, we also had a preview of round one of the playoffs. Tim beat Carlo 136-128. Connor, is this a sign of things to come for Carlo, or is it just Tim happened to catch him on the right week?
I think Tim put out a pretty good effort here and kind of snatched that win. I think this is more showing what's going to happen to Carlo that I was expecting to happen in the playoffs. It was just sooner than even that. You know, part of the problem was he had to deal with the fact that he couldn't play two quarterbacks, which could have gotten maybe a few more points that way. But the big glaring thing that I have been waiting for is if you look at those wide receivers, 4 points, 9 points. You know, he was riding guys getting 50 points for him 1 week, 40 the next, and he was looking elite again after struggling in the middle of the season. But that's not going to win him the playoffs with a consistency to have that kind of performances. And his running backs, I mean, Theo Riddick had a kind of a not typical game getting 17, but his running backs are not putting him up points. So when his wide receivers, you know, have those off games, which as a wide receiver, it's more typical, then, you know, all of a sudden his team's putting up 128 instead of 170 like he has been in past weeks.
Yeah, 128 will get you beat in the playoffs, no question. One of the toilet bowls of the week, you got Steve losing to Alex 97-134 and basically guaranteeing himself a toilet seat. Now, Kevin, is Steve really that bad of a team? I mean, I know he traded away some of his better players. Is he a toilet seat team, or is he a toilet seat team in name only?
Well, I mean, he's had some really low scores. I see a lot of the guys that he has here should be doing. I mean, he's got guys that are on terrible offenses. I just I don't know. And then the trades he made this year were just, I don't understand. I don't know. I guess I'll have to give him a few shots next year at the draft and see what I can pick up. If there's anybody I'd want to pick up, maybe Lewis. But
Dad's dropping the heat over here.
That's right, Steve.
Okay. Yeah. I think he probably deserves it this year, but I think it was more of and it's sort of funny that Alex is the one that handed him the final loss here, because that's who sort of took advantage at times.
That is true.
He did much with it, but himself.
That is true. We'll move on to this next game. We got Murder Muppets 183, D's Nate's 140.7 in a preview of the first round of the first choice tournament. What happened here, Connor?
What happened is your team laughed in your face and said, "We aren't going to get you to the playoffs, and then we're going to give you the highest score of the week." McCown like 31 points. Call me Drew Brees. You know, Tyreek Hill decided to have one of his best games of the season right at the end of the year. I mean, no, but I think that this is a team that's going to make a deep run in the first pick tournament. I would not be enthused to have to listen to you talk about how you got the first pick, but, you know, if it happens, I think your team's one of the more likely to win. I think you got a real good shot.
All righty here, and we'll move on to the last game here. The White Sharks at the Fozzie Fullbacks. Connor really just took care of business here. It's a game you expected Connor to win. 157-107. Anything to see here there, Kevin, or did the better team just win this one?
You have your shot against my team.
Yeah,
What do you have to
well,
say?
what can I say? You're starting to get your players back. They're doing well for you. Sort of hoping that a couple of them go down before I have to worry about you in the playoffs.
Jeez. Hoping they go down. Not get caught with weed and get suspended. They go down. They get injured.
That's like fantasy's so evil. You're rooting for guys to get hurt.
Well, you make it even.
Well, you are. I mean, seriously. Kevin's about to break Alvin Kamara's shin with a crowbar on some Nancy Kerrigan shit.
I wouldn't
right
want to see that.
But you basically just said that. You basically just said
that. Hamstring pull. That's all.
Good grief. Moving on. Well,
Sir, and I'm seeing 31, 24, 25, 36, 29.
I was watching the game this past week. He was looking really good.
It's fun to watch.
I actually saw an interview with him on Levitard today when I was at work. He has a septum piercing, so I'm going to go ahead and not hold that against him. So why don't we go ahead and talk about some of these playoff matchups? You have the four.
I have something to do first, though.
Oh, go ahead, Connor.
The historical.
I have this historical record.
Why don't you do that during the previews or right before each preview?
I thought this is what we were doing. Oh, okay. Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Okay. 4 seed Petersburg Penguins host the Queef Wellingtons. Connor, why don't you go ahead and give us the tail of the tape here?
Well, I decided to go from when the teams expanded to 14. So unfortunately for Tim, that means I have no standing on him whatsoever. He has not made the playoffs since the added teams. As for Carlo, he's been kind of a one-and-doner most of the time. He's 1-1 or 1-2 overall. So he's had a win in the playoffs, but he hasn't really gone much further than that.
Okay. Now, Kevin, in terms of 2017, you see the projection there. Carlo projected to win by 43 points. Tim still needs to put in a new tight end, so we'll call it 37 points or whatever. Mm-hmm. Is there any reason to believe that Tim can repeat last week's results and get the win?
I think Tim might have caught a lucky week. The problem is Connor was saying earlier, the consistency of the receivers. It's going to depend on what type of secondary they're going to be coming up against when they play. Yeah, and whether they can pull out some points for Carlo or not this week. I'm thinking Tim looks to be more the consistent with what you can expect from him in points, where Carlo can have a great game or he can get flushed. But,
so what's your official pick on this one, Kevin?
I'm picking Carlo though. I think twice in a row is going to be a tough thing to accomplish for Tim.
All right, Connor, what's your stance on this game?
I think Carlo's going to pull this one out. I think he's going to be streaky going to the playoffs. He's going to falter at some point, but I think he had his down week last week, and I think he's going to pick it up this week. So I think he's going to be beating Tim after Tim made him drop in his standings.
Hey, and Eli's starting again this week, so there you go.
And it's against Dallas, so you know he's going to get like 30 points.
That's a solid point. You do have Adam Thielen against Carolina, but Keenan Allen has been on absolute fire lately, going up against a really bad Washington secondary that we saw Dak Prescott abuse on Thursday night. Zach Ertz's injury is something to monitor, but the Jaguars defense against that Seattle offensive line could be all new meaning to the word Saxonville. Meanwhile, Tim's got Andy Dalton against a good Bears defense. You got Josh Gordon. Who knows what you're going to get from him? The running backs, as my dad would say, I don't think Tim's got the horses for this race. I got to go with Carlo as well, and he'll be moving on to the
one last little stat at the bottom here. I'm looking at their points scored by week, and this last week was the only week that Tim has outscored Carlo. So the only time that he's beaten Carlo is when he played him.
Oh, that's what they call being a gamer, Connor. So let's move on to the other playoff matchup. We have the Compton Cookie Snatchers, the 6th seed, going all the way to Fozzieland to visit the fullbacks. Kevin, in the previous matchup, it looks like Ray got the better of Connor. Is there any reason to think that it'll happen again?
Well, how many of Connor's players were down that last game too? So, the way I'm looking at it, sorry, Ray. I mean, I'm seeing Connor's gonna go ahead with this one.
Connor wins this game, Kevin. You know he plays against the old man. So are you
Well,
rooting for him to win or lose?
I usually hold my own against him, except his undefeated season.
Yeah, the thing you failed to do this year. Yeah.
Oh, you sweating this one, Connor?
I'm a little annoyed that Carlo decided to lose because I don't want to go up against Ray because he's streaky and he can put up big time points. You know, he's put up some of the higher scores this year at points. At the same time, you know, I could say it also is kind of a good thing because he does put up a lot of duds as well. I think I'm going to give it to myself because I think my team's just been so consistent. I think I've been in the 150, 160 range for the past like 4 or 5 weeks. So, well, maybe I think probably 3 or 4. But I'm really liking my stride coming into the playoffs. And I think as long as I can always put up that 150, 160, it's going to take somebody really having an all-star week for me to lose. Also, just to point out the records again here, I'm 3-3 overall since 2012.
All 3 of those wins, or 2 of those 3 wins, came in your undefeated season.
Which, if you took away that season, I'd be sharing the same kind of outcome as Ray's only appearance in the playoffs, where he lost. He's 0-1 for the playoffs, and in that game, he scored 94 points. So here's to hoping that that happens again.
And keep in mind, guys, Ray is a founding member of the Ultimate Man's League. So he was in the league back in 2009, and this is only his second playoff berth. I tend to agree with you guys. I don't know that Ray. I mean, this is definitely losable for you, Connor. I'm not sure that this is the team that's going to end your season. I'm going to go with Connor as well. And we all agreed on both actual playoff games. And if we're right, you're going to get Kevin versus Connor and Pat versus Carlo in the semifinals. Why don't we go ahead and move on to the first choice tournament and talk about the 1 seed Team Man Bear Pig versus the 8 seed Suck My Ditka. Steve is actually projected to win this game. Currently needs to replace Juju Smith-Schuster, but his projection still counts. Kevin, I'll keep it simple. Who you got?
Well, like I said, as long as he can get above 130, he's got him. I just he isn't projected to get there, but like you say, he needs to replace one. So his for what it's worth, his projection should go over the 130. I mean, that's all it's going to take for him. If he could just put the
sorry, Kevin. I don't mean to interrupt, but look at the score from the first matchup: 98-71.
Okay, I didn't see that.
If AJ wins this game, he officially hands the. I mean, AJ's not going to be the toilet seat next year, obviously, but he officially hands the toilet seat off to Steve if he wins this game. Connor,
it'd be good for him to do. I mean, just be able to say he deserved it, you know.
I deserve to get rid of it. Connor, does Steve wear the toilet seat, or does he stave it off for one more week?
I think he's gonna. You know what? I'm not loving the Cincinnati matchup for all Chicago guys. I feel like when Chicago has an easy opponent, he tends to have the higher score, and I worry about Trubisky going up against Cincinnati. Mm-hmm. But even still, I think this could be another repeat performance with a 98-71 score, and I think Steve will pull it out. The running back situation for AJ right now is looking really bad. I mean, McCaffrey's on fire, but Duke Johnson's fallen off these past couple weeks. And I think with the arrival of the wide receiver, Josh Gordon, they're really focused on those deep throws. And I don't think Duke Johnson's going to get used to end the year now as much. And, I mean, having to plug in Corey Clement, I feel like he's going to struggle there. He needs some big-time wide receiver play, and I just don't think it's going to add up.
And I'll tell you, Cincinnati did look pretty good the other night.
The defense is solid.
Yeah. They play like that against Chicago, and they'll win. I'm actually going to go with AJ here. If there's anything that we've learned from this season, it's when the other team isn't going to put up a whole lot of points, AJ will find a way to win. There's a reason AJ's got 7 wins and Steve's got 2. Unfortunately, for Steve, I think that this is going to be the end of the line for him. We'll move on to the next game. We'll talk about the 4 seed versus the 5 seed, the 4-9 Punchers versus the 4-9 Sharks. Connor, the projection's almost dead even. The first matchup, Joe won pretty handily. Who you got?
I think Joe kind of had this great game because it was against his brother and he just likes to be a dick. But I think Adam's team, yes, it's has the same record as Joe, but I think he's kind of, there's your team, there's your dad's team, to kind of round out the top in points of scoring. I think Adam's kind of the next guy up, so I think he's got the track record that if he could plug in the right guys, I think that might be his downfall, is not putting in the right people and not dropping people on his bench that he should be dropping. If he were to make some grabs for the waiver wire this week and plug them in, I think he could probably outscore Joe. Just find 1 or 2 pieces that could get him 8 to 10 points, plug him in and where he's the weakest, and I think that'd be enough to beat Joe. So
what's your official pick?
It's Adam.
Adam, okay. Kevin, we see that Joe and Adam kind of have these talent deficient teams. I mean, the only good players on either team really are both on Adam's team in Wentz and Gordon. Do we think that Adam takes care of business, or do you think that Joe pulls one out here?
I don't know. Joe has Rex Burkhead. He had a good game. He's been coming alive lately.
My dad's very upset that he dropped.
Yes, hey.
I think Mike Gillislee's available though, so if you want to get him.
But I don't know. My heart wants to give it to Joe. I just feel sorry for him.
You hear that, Adam? He hates you.
Oh, hey, come on. I'm going to make you miss the championship, so what the hell?
So your official pick is Adam then, Kevin?
No, I'm going to go with – I want Joe to win. I'm going to go with Joe.
He's picking favorites.
Yeah, well, I know. Playing with my heart.
Playing favorites.
There you go, Joe. Somebody has some pity on you, Joe.
These 2 teams are just absolutely atrocious. But Joe's team has Trevor Siemian going against the Jets and Tom Savage against the 49ers. And I think Jimmy Garoppolo will be able to move that offense. I think that it'll end up being a shootout there. I'm going to take Joe as well. But if Adam wins, I won't be even the least bit surprised.
Why don't we pick the team that'll get above 100 of the 2?
Jeez, Kevin. Damn. There's edgy and there's offensive. The 6 seed Pain Train traveled down to see the 3rd seeded Rabbit College Rampage. Kevin, my dad's projected to win this one by 11 points. But Alex has some guns over there on his side of the team, but he did get killed last time, 124-179. Mm-hmm. Any reason to think that Alex can pull this one off?
Yeah, there's reason to think it, but I think your dad had a long summer slumber and he's waking up. So I
didn't wake up against Ray. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, well. So hey, when you get this old, you have a couple of strenuous weeks. You need a nap. I think your dad's been coming alive recently, really, and momentum can speak volumes. So I think I'm going to give it to your dad.
Okay, Connor, what are your thoughts on this matchup?
I'll use less poetry in my explanation, but I just think your dad's team's one of the most stacked rosters left in this pick tournament. I mean, Alshon Jeffrey's been playing a lot better. His running backs, yeah, they put up bad weeks last week, but I think overall, I don't know what Ajayi's deal is.
Well, they have so many running backs on that team.
Yeah, I think that's going to only get better as it goes. And he had to deal with Seattle last week. The Rams' defense isn't that much better for him, but I think that game should be high scoring. I think they're really going to go at it with each other. I think Ajayi will get in there for a touchdown. And DeMarco Murray against Arizona, that's going to be rough too. But you look at the other side. If he's playing a backup, a good backup, I'll say, in Eckler. But I don't know. I just think that when you look at the names, Jimmy Graham, Cam Newton, Alshon Jeffrey, those guys are going to put up points, and I think it's going to be the difference maker.
Yeah, I'll keep my analysis short and sweet. Doug Sr. good, Alex bad. Doug Sr. wins and moves on to the semifinals of the first choice tournament. The last game in the first choice tournament. Rematch of week 13. D's Nates, Murder Muppets. I won the first matchup 183-140. Connor, what do you think? What do you think is going to happen? Are we going to get a similar result, or is it going to be a little different?
It's Nate, so I think it's going to be pretty similar. I don't think you're going to have as good of a week as you had last week, but I think you're showing that your team's going to be putting up some pretty solid numbers. And I think in this pool, with what's left, putting up 150, 160 is like putting up 180. And I think if your team can get close to that weekly, you should go pretty far in the playoffs. I don't think Nate's going to be the one to stop you.
Cool. Kevin, what are your thoughts on this one?
Well, Gronkowski's suspended this week, right?
Yeah.
Indeed.
And Jenkins had a couple of hot games and has gone down, so the tight ends are going to be quiet for him, I think. Maybe Glabbert could do something, but I wouldn't count on it. Cousins has been stumbling a bit from what his potential was in the beginning. I think he's losing some of his weapons, and they haven't figured out what to do yet about that. So I'm thinking you're going to pull it out, Doug.
And keep in mind that projection includes. I haven't replaced Geno Smith yet, so the projection should be actually even a little more in the other direction. But yeah, I agree. I think I'm going to go ahead and beat one of the worst teams in the league. I know I'm a renegade in that way, and I'll move on to face my dad in the semifinals next week. Can I get some bold predictions out of you guys? Who wins the? Who's going to win the UML Bowl 9? Connor?
Well, I'm going to crush my dad to the championship game. But one last little stat here that maybe will have my prediction go through is the only other time Pat's been in the playoffs, he did not lose. He was 3-0. That's the only time. It's the only record we have of him, and I think he may be going 2-0 this season. I think I'll lose to him in the championship game.
All right. Kevin, what's your prediction?
I'm telling Pat has just been – and it's like, where did he come from, really? You didn't really talk about him most of the season, and yet there he was winning the games and –
embarrassing you.
Yeah. So, I'm thinking put it this way, I hope he somehow stumbles, but I don't see him before it gets there. Because if I get to the championship, I don't think I'd want a repeat match.
Well, if that's the only way you're playing him, so
yeah, no, I know. Well, no, if he loses in the,
and that also ties in my other stat. My dad's 3-3 all time. He's had a bye every time he's made the playoffs, and he's failed every single time to win in the championship. Well, earlier, but
yeah.
Cool. So, what we'll do here, guys, not in this show, but when teams get eliminated for the year, when their seasons are done, We'll go ahead and look ahead to some of their draft needs for next year. And since no one's out yet, we'll skip that this week. But do you get? I mean, Connor, you got a game this week. Do you want to put out any trash talk?
Yeah, right. You've made the playoffs one other time, and you got 94 points. You're a piece of shit, and I'm going to kick your ass.
All right.
And I've been mean.
Kevin, do you want to say anything horrible and mean to the rest of the playoff field?
Like he has been the whole day.
Yeah, right.
I think I did well enough there, but I do want to thank Tim just for making sure I got the number 2 seed.
Yeah, Kevin was really scared to have to play a wild card round game.
Not scared. I just didn't want to deal with it.
You were on full tilt, okay? Like not wanting to play that game. like I don't know what it was about having to play like Tim in the first round or whatever you would have had to do. But you were just like, you were on tilt. You were like, no, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it.
And there I was cheering Dalton on last night of all people. Wow.
Andy Dalton. Hey, he came through for you.
Yeah.
So everybody knows if he acts up again, which he probably will, I have plenty more pictures to post. So I've got you guys covered.
I have to go through the photo albums because my online stuff is, but I know there's stuff in there. So I can find some good baby pictures.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for joining us. We'll have to have you guys back on some other time. If again, I say this every week and no one ever listens. If you want to be on the podcast, please reach out.
Yes.
Connor does it pretty much every time, and he shouldn't have to. Maybe we can. Does Kevin know how to do this, or did Connor basically do it for him?
I had to be here. That's why.
Yeah. Come on.
Okay. So.
You know, the thing is, though, I like listening to Connor. He has some he has good insight.
I don't want to do it every week.
Wow, I know that, but
Connor is well prepared, if nothing else. Guys, thanks so much for being on the show, and good luck in the playoffs, Connor. Nate, you're going down like Joe's mom in a locker room. And until next week, guys, this is Kamish signing off. Konnichiwa, bitches.